J Jinx!
Truck stop!
Today, I'm going to talk about my small collection of traditional electrician's knives. These were made from the mid-1930s, kind of until today. They're still made. So for the uninitiated, we'll do a very, very quick walk around. These are typically two-bladed, and you get a bail on one end, a kind of a broom handle, or reminiscent of maybe a Barlow style handle. Now this one, it's kind of a long story of how I got my hands on it. When I first moved into my house 4 years ago at this point, the previous owners left a bunch of junk in my basement. And, when I say junk, I mean things, useful things, like this. It was hanging on a rusty nail on the wall. I actually had no idea what it was. I was just like, hey, cool, free knife. Came with the house. Or you could say, I bought a very expensive knife and got a house with it. Anyway, so I sent a photo of it to my friend. Oh, sorry, I clipped my nails recently. Picked a bad day to do this kind of knife. Anyway, I sent a photo off to my buddy Tristan Barnett, and he, of course, knew exactly what it was. Said, you have an electrician's knife made by Camillus. Nice. So I got super curious, and I even made a video about electrician's knives and the different ways that they're made and stuff. I got a lot of things wrong because I kind of didn't know what I was talking about, but my point is that I actually kind of liked it. So I sent it to Tristan Barnett to clean up. It was very gunked up. I think I needed pliers to get the blade open, and I decided to gift it to him after he had cleaned it up, and in return he sent me one of his, and it's the same one, same model I should say, Camillus, and so like, hey, you can have one of mine then. So this is my first electrician's knife, kinda. I guess technically a second. And Tristan did a great job. There are signs of pitting, so this thing did have a nice patina at one point, and then he just cleaned off all the rust and got it back into working condition. So thank you for that, Tristan. And of course there are a ton of companies that made these, and still, some of them still do. But this is one of the nicer ones. The pile is nice and stacked evenly and flush. It looks like Tristan might have cleaned up the handle material a little bit. There's signs of, I'm guessing, sandpapering or something. Traditionally, the scale material is made with Bakelite, which is a very early kind of plastic. It's hard to say what exactly it is I like about these knives. The drop point blade is just a very, very standard blade shape. It's not the most comfy, but for something that was designed in the 1930s, I guess it's pretty good. I don't know. And this particular one has half stops, which I like because it makes one-handed closing doable. So this is my first one-ish. About 6 months ago or so, I was at a local flea market, one in New Egypt, and I spotted this one in a display case, and I bought it as a part of a bundle. I think I paid $60 and got something like 10 different knives, and this one I was really happy with because it's actually in kind of decent condition. If you saw some of the other knives in that guy's display case, they were basically just piles of rust at that point. But this is made by Camco. That's one of the brands. On the other side of the blade it says 229. I guess that's just a model number. It's not TL29. And it's got that dark gray patina that has formed on the drop point blade. A couple of notes about the other blade. I didn't really mention it when I went through this knife. It's supposed to have a flat end, which is usable as a flathead screwdriver. And then you have this groove on the top, which helps to secure a wire or a cable in place as you strip off the plastic insulation, but somebody sharpened it. Here, I'll pull out the other one for comparison. Oh God, rest in peace, thumbnail. Not gonna happen. I love traditional knives. Why do I collect these things? Anyway, it's liner locked. That's what that kind of swooping brass thing is there for. But notice how the edge of the blade goes from being sharp to dull at some point, and that's the part where it becomes the flathead screwdriver. So someone decided, you know what, I want this to be a sharpened blade too, the whole way down. They reprofiled the edge and turned it into another drop point blade, sort of. But I bought it anyway because, hey, why not? And it looks like they did the job with an angle grinder, perhaps. Not the best finish. That'll take some time on a work sharp. So it's a modified Camco Electrician's knife. And if you look on the handle material, this is so hard to see in real life. I'm not sure about the camera. You can sort of make out, it looks like there's some letters scratched in right about here. Really, really hard to tell. I mean, it could be a coincidence. But on the other side, there's definitely something scratched in there which is readable, and it says DEC 61. So this knife might have been acquired in December of 61, and maybe on the other side this was somebody's name at some point. It's really hard to make out. Larry, maybe? Harry? I don't know. Let's just say it's Harry's knife. Now, you might have noticed that the drop point blade doesn't quite go all the way in. That tip kind of sticks out, and there is some kind of an issue with the spring that it just doesn't go in as far as it should. That is pretty much the only issue with this knife. Oh, that and the fact that they reprofiled the electrician's blade. But otherwise, I think it was a good buy. An old one, too. Not to be outdone, I picked up another one at the same flea market, except it was probably a couple of years ago. Here it is. Definitely has that patina thing going on. I got this knife for 10 cents. They basically had like a rusted out toolbox with a bunch of tools that looked like they had been at the bottom of the ocean for 10 years, and they were like 10 cents for anything you want in here. It's all garbage, basically. I was like, you know what, this old gnarly electrician's knife for 10 cents, I'll take it. The bail is beat up. Oh god. And the main blade, or the drop point blade I should say, it's pretty much not salvageable. It's rusted, it's broken. Somebody definitely used this for prying and then didn't learn their lesson and did it again. Or at that point, I guess they just gave up. One sign that someone used it for prying is that the tip is either bent or broken. The other sign is lots and lots of play. I mean, this is just ready to fall out. Have a look at the liner lock for the electrician's blade. You can see up here it's kind of curled. I don't know how something like that could possibly happen, but it means that getting the blade up and out is... bear with me. A lot easier to open than to close this one for some reason. Yeah. Perfect. Anyway, means the liner lock kinda still works, but it's curled. It's weird. I guess you could say it locks it in this position too, so if you ever wanted to, I don't know, strip wire like that, then you're good. And then you gotta push it out of the way and it slides past, and you can see it's making its own little track mark there. This thing's not serviceable. It's not in good shape. There is a little bit of play on the electrician's blade. A couple of interesting things about it are the cutout on the top is way up here, and there's been a groove put in down here for stripping insulation, I guess, but it's not sharp down there. So I guess it's just a sharpening choil then. But the screwdrivery part remains intact. It goes dull, and then you can use it as a flathead screwdriver just fine. There is what looks like salt built up on the exterior, or something. Spackle? I don't know. And looking down in there, I can see there's some really bad rusting going on. And try as I might, I could not lift a name from anywhere. I actually kind of cleaned up this part just to see if there was a stamp. There's nothing. And, you know, taking a step back for a moment, I'm seeing some other strange things too. The pins that go through the bolsters are not flush, where normally they are. You can see them. They're there. They're just, you know, pinned and then brushed or ground to get it nice and flush. That is not the case with this one. You could say the same thing about the actual scale, where the scale meets the bolster. Flush. Not flush. And it kind of makes me wonder, maybe was this knife like restored at some point? Was the original handle kind of chipped, broken, or gone, and then someone came and fashioned their own wood scales and then pinned it into place? Because you can see that the pins are pretty kind of gnarly and irregular looking in the handle as well. It looks like a DIY job, and I can't know for sure. It's possible that this was also just a cheapo knockoff copy of an electrician's knife, hence no branding whatsoever. Although, now that I'm looking at it, I can kind of make out what might be the letter N there. But the stamp is usually on the drop point blade. Oh, I don't know. It probably isn't even worth my trouble. So anyway, there's my heavily corroded electrician's knife that I got for 10 cents. Yeah, worth it to me. And then at some point said, you know what, I only have a few of these, only one of them's really usable. This one's got a couple of issues. This one, you know, an issue or two. What was it like to actually use, to get and hold and use one of these when it was brand new? So it got me curious. I started looking around. Do people still make these things? They do. So I picked up a brand new shiny one from Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Actually, I got it from Amazon. Smoky Mountain Knife Works as their storefront. And this is a Rough Rider branded electrician's knife. It's a little bit different than the traditional ones. The scales are a little bit thinner, and this is some kind of a bone material, which they've dyed to be a very, very dark blue. We got a shield that says "Be Prepared," which, isn't that like a Boy Scout thing? To always be prepared? Something like that. And it is kind of cool to handle one of these where it's just like shiny, new, and like no imperfections, especially after what I've gone through with these three. So let's have a look. On the main blade, it says Coal Miner. For some reason, I guess that's the coal miner's logo. I don't know. And there's the Rough Rider logo stamped in there. And then the electrician's blade. Now you have the groove on the top and a cutout just underneath it. Kind of like almost like a VEF serration, but not quite. And so that's where you can wrap your wire around and shave off the insulation. And you got your screwdriver thing at the tip. And it's shiny and new and interesting. Also has the half stops. Yeah. And there are some other brands that still make these today as well. Fast forward to my latest road trip, which I went on back in June, I think, so almost 6 months ago. And I spotted another one at a flea market consignment type place. Saw it sitting in the display case just like that. They wanted $25 for it, and I was like, I know I could do much better in price than that, but it looks like it's in really good shape. I kind of wonder, how old is this thing? Tell me more about it. And so I had them open up the case, and I picked it up, and look what I found. Wow. If they had this side up, I would have bought it, no question. It is a TL29 stamped knife. Who makes it? Oh, it's Camillus. And if you watch my video where I talk about Electrician's knives that I put up like 3-4 years ago, the way that the logo is, and there's some other signs and stuff, you can kind of figure out a decade of manufacture on these things. And the TL29 stamp in the Bakelite handle means that this was government issued for service in the military. And that doesn't mean that this was like brought into combat or anything like that. The government contracted like probably 1 million of these things over the decades. They used them in World War II. Who knows? Until Desert Storm, maybe. Maybe today. I don't know. But the TL29 stamp instantly makes this one a little more valuable. I don't know if I got a good deal on it or not. $25. I guess I could have jumped on eBay to shop around, but when you're on the road and you make a stop in one of these places, you stop really thinking about how good of a deal is something, and you just kind of want it and say, yeah, that sounds like a fair price to me. I guess I'm a sucker for this kind of thing, but the blade is actually in good condition. I mean, it needs sharpening, a little polishing, sure. I'm not going to, touch it really, but there's no chips, there's no play. It looks like this. Someone was in a hurry. Looks like this thing was kind of hardly used. Now, I've read stories about people saying that, people working on like as mechanics and like air hangers and stuff, they'll carry like 2 or 3 of these because it's pretty common for the blades to snap and break. They're common enough that they want to carry more than one. And I hate to do this, but it's the only way I've figured out how to open these things after I cut my nails. Looking at the Electrician's blade here, hard to read, but there's lettering. And basically it's instructions. To release, push center lock to left. So that is very reminiscent of a government-issued thing. In fact, the code TL29, TL stands for tool lineman. Model 29, I guess? Which is kind of weird because this is a Camillus Model 27 knife. But that's just like their internal model numbering system. The only issue with this knife is the lockup is not that great. There's probably some grit and dirt and crap in there, maybe, that's preventing it from locking completely. I don't know. If I really pull on it, the lock does move over. So it's just, it's a bit, it's aged. It's aged a bit. A little bit of a rust spot here. That might be from rubbing on the inside. I don't know. So there we go. The latest knife to my collection, the TL29 branded Camillus Electrician's knife. Now, if you head over to Tristan Barnett's channel and do a search on his content, you might find a video where he shows off his Electrician's knife collection, and he's got pretty much the most complete one that I've ever seen. So he's gone and collected like all the different brands, all the different variations. I don't think my collection will ever be that complete, because with the exception of the very first one, all of these other ones have been finds out in the wild. Although I guess you could argue that this one sort of was as well. I had to buy a house to get it. I never noticed this before, but those written instructions are actually on this blade. It's hard to see, but it's there. Is it like that for like all of them? Or is it only the... See, I've only ever seen that for the ones marked TL29. But this one... I'll have to ask Tristan. I wonder, did he replace the handles at some point? Or did Camillus just write that on all of their blades? Because that's the other thing that these two have in common, is that they're both the same brand. There's always more stuff to learn about these things. That's part of the reason why I like them so much. This has been JJ Jinx.